Chapter 7 The Echo Protocol. It was a cool, misty morning. Bill woke up to the annoying alarm clock with its twin mechanical bells ringing. He hated this thing. Sleep was peace, and those bells were destroying his slumber. Next to him, curled up, a German shepherd hogged a blanket nest made in the middle of the night. Odin looked at Bill, then laid his head back down. "You rest, old friend. I got some things to do," Bill said to Odin. A tail thumped the bed, acknowledging the kind gesture. "It won't be long now," Bill said to himself. He and that dog had been through hell and then back for more. Bill poured a tall glass of iced tea and quietly opened the door to the tea sock. He went downstairs into his workstation. He scanned the documents and generated slides for the meeting this evening. Inside the tea sock was several computers, and each set had a specific function. The first was weather, next was intel, and the third was command and control. On the end was an array of many different types of radios, all scanning and looking for broadcast. Bill checked the JT65 logger for any flash alerts. There were 5 alerts, but only one was important. AZMR-net simply read, "Alive and kicking, all good." Bill smiled and was glad his friend was still on the air. He would send the intel package he was making out to his friend, who would then distribute the intel to a much wider net that he managed. If anything came back, he would relay that back to Bill. This was a decent setup, and Bill was glad that he had captured that message. Bill finished converting the intel into the intel package and was wrapping up when the alarm activated, indicating that the door to the tea sock had just opened. It was Sam. "Morning, Buck," Bill said. "Morning, Dad. Anything come in overnight?" Sam asked. "Our friend in Arizona made contact. He's doing good," Bill replied. "That's great," Sam said, with a smile. "So what is the plan of attack today?" Sam asked. "Well, we need to get the side-by-side going and warmed up. Then we'll head west to the end and start the Echo Protocol with ribbons." "What did you think about that intel?" Bill asked. "That's some bad shit brewing, and not far away either. Makes sense why the radio chatter dropped from the militia nets too," Sam said. "Yeah," Bill replied. "This may also be why some of our primary members have not showed up as well," Bill said. "That makes sense," Sam said. "Why don't you get a roll of ribbon and warm the gator up?" Bill said to Sam. "Roger that. I was going to go get those weapons issued," Sam replied. "We can hold off on that for now. We need to get this done ASAP. Your sister is going to invoke it from the east side and work her way back," Bill said. Sam responded, "Good. That will save us some time." Bill looked at Sam. "I will be up in 10 minutes. Be ready to roll." Sam nodded and said copy and went up and out of the tea sock. "Ready to go home?" Shelby said to Torvey. Torvey wagged her tail. She was hungry and ready to head home. Shelby keyed up the radio. "K93, T-SOC?" Bill responded. "K93, go ahead." "We are 10-7 and heading home. Do you still need me to activate Echo Papa?" Bill responded. "Roger that. Echo Papa is in effect. Myself and Ripsaw 5 will be out on the east side. Use the daily code of the day call sign for contact from here out." Shelby replied, "Roger that. Ripsaw 4 out." Bill replied, "Copy. Ripsaw 6 out." Each day the small team used a different code of the day from a database that Bill had created years ago. There were 3 such databases, one for daily operations, one for making contact with people, and one for combat operations. At midnight each night, the new code of the day would pop up on the CQ desk so that the word could be spread and noted throughout the day. This ensured everyone was on the same page and prevented outsiders from impersonating group members. It wasn't foolproof, but if there was contact via the radio, there were several methods to detect that. First being it was just the 3 of them, and each one knew each other's voice. Now with the new folks in the group, all this training would need to be redone, which was great as it refreshed the group's own understanding and helped to etch the standard operating procedures into each person's memory. Shelby and Torvey invoked the Echo Protocol on Cliff's mailbox. The Echo Protocol consisted of an agreement that in the event there needed to be a meeting of the heads of homes on the mountain, that when the flag on the mailboxes were raised, or a specific color of ribbon was placed on the main gate, that regardless of what was going on at each home, the heads of the house would meet at a barn located in the middle of the mountain. If for whatever reason the head of a house could not make the meeting due to health reasons or some other major reason, a delegate would be sent to attend, and a roster was kept. And if anyone missed an ECHO meeting, they lost support from the large mutual assistance group, which was a major deal as in case of fire, sickness, or some other calamity, getting help to keep that house going was not going to come. And in the event that there was some armed group or conflict, no combat support would be provided. Everyone that lived up there took an oath to protect the mountain, and it was signed in blood via a signature and a bloody fingerprint. If there was an armed group, all women and children would be rushed to Bill's keep and protected until the trouble passed, and all the men and women who were fighting would fight back to Bill's for a final battle to end the assault on the mountain. This was never done before, as most armed marauders were simply overwhelmed by the initial responding houses, and by the time the furthest house responded, the fighting was usually over, with only the cleanup left to do. Whomever was attacked reaped the bounty of any spoils from the battle, usually weapons and ammo, and maybe some supplies. It was not uncommon for a head of the house to dole out rewards to other houses for a quick response. Bill and Sam spoke with Martha and Scott. We have to do something, so we will be leaving. Shelby will be here very soon. Scott, please tend to the animals. The dogs have already been fed except for Torvey, and Shelby will take care of her. Martha, I would like for you to monitor the radio at the CQ desk. Today's call sign is Ripsaw, and the CQ desk is Ripsaw Actual. If you hear any chatter on the scanner, please write it down as accurately as possible. Do you guys think you can do this for me? Both responded eagerly with a yes. No problem. Odin is in my bedroom. I do not think he will be with us much longer. Maybe this will be his last week, so don't worry about him. He won't bother you. If he does get out of bed and comes up to you, just talk to him and pet him. He may need to go outside. He can roam around. It won't hurt anything. Just let Shelby know he is outside when she returns. Any questions? Bill asked. There was silence, and two heads shaking no. Bill left. This would take about an hour, so he wanted to get back as quickly as he could. Sam and Bill headed out, making sure to close and secure the gates as they left, and at a medium speed made their way down the road. They did this once a week at random intervals. One, to let anyone know who was out they were good, and they were patrolling, and in many cases on the trip home there would be several house heads waiting for them, and they would get to chat for a few and work their way back to their keep. The ribbon was light blue, which was code blue, which meant urgent emergency meeting, mandatory attendance required. They were halfway back, and Eric flagged them down. He had a decent spread, 40 acres, good ground, and a decent-sized group, mostly family members, and a couple of friends. Bill and Sam stopped and got out. How goes it, Eric? Bill asked. Well, we have been hearing some shootouts out yonder and pointed west. Yeah, Sam replied. I heard that last night, too. Eric spoke. These seem to be getting closer every other day, Bill. What do you make of it? Bill handed Eric a blue ribbon. Echo Protocol, he said. Eric's face got serious. That bad, huh? Bill responded. I'm afraid so. Same spot and time, Eric asked. Yes, Bill replied. Okay then, I will be there. Great, Bill replied. Listen, we need to get these ribbons placed, so I will catch up with you after the meeting tonight. Eric nodded. That would be good, Bill. The men shook hands, and Bill and Sam got in the gator and continued on their mission. It was 1930 hours when Bill announced he was getting ready to leave. Under normal circumstances, he would have taken Sam with him. But for tonight, Sam would be leading the keep security detail, with Scott, Martha, and Shelby all ready for action, should something go down. These types of meetings were very dangerous, as all the heads of the houses on the mountain would be in attendance, and the perfect target for a threat actor to attack with a decapitation strike against the mountain community. That's why these meetings were never announced over the radio net, and they were only invoked as urgent matters arised. Bill entered into the barn, producing the blue ribbon as his challenge token. The two heavily armed guards allowed him in. "Evening, Bill," one of the guards greeted. "Evening, Tommy. How's it going?" Bill replied. "Well, it was going good. Guess we are all ready to hear how it's going to go bad." Bill sighed. "It will be worth your time, I promise." Once inside, the murmur of men, about 20 or so, was heard, the air thick with pipe and cigar smoke. As Bill worked his way through the crowd, many greeted him and were glad to see him. Bill set up his laptop and a USB projector. A white bedsheet was put up to act like a viewing screen, and once he had everything set, he nodded to the sergeant-at-arms to gavel the meeting into session. 3 loud bangs were heard, and the men began to be seated. Bill spoke. "Good evening, gentlemen and gentlewoman," acknowledging the only female head of house sitting midway in the audience. She nodded back at Bill, thanking him for his acknowledgement. "We are here tonight to discuss a clear and present danger to our town, our mountain, and our families. This threat has been taking over America one city, one town at a time. They have turned trusted allies in the Tennessee militia against our brothers and sisters. They are working their way in our direction." The room buzzed with concerned murmur. "However, by God's grace, 2 newcomers arrived at my place yesterday. One a nurse and one a farmer. The farmer had in his possession a military pack. He recovered from a uniformed group dressed in black fatigues. Apparently they stopped to let their LT take a dump, and this was his pack." There were some snickers from the crowd. Inside the pack was a radio and complete details of an op-ord for Operation Stormfront. This operation is being ran by Chinese PRC troops operating on the East Coast, while Russians are sweeping from west to east. Bill displayed the op-ord for the audience to read. Some of the older men got up to get closer. Some gasps were heard as they read through the document. "I have copies of this op-ord for each one of you to take with you so you can share this with your houses. Both newcomers are the last survivors of their families and groups. The farmer was under the protection of 2 Special Forces vets that I knew online. These were guys that did not make mistakes. According to the farmer, one of the guys was still alive when he found him, and he said they hit that group like a swarm of bees. They were not your run-of-the-mill shitbags out looting and raping. They were fine-tuned and disciplined and were following a plan of attack on this group. The survivor estimated there were 50 to 100 men and women in this fighting force." The audience gasped. A man spouted out, "That's a lot of guns, Bill." "Yes, it is," Bill replied. These people then raided the 5 homes, killing men, women, and children, and taking all their resources. This intel is from a forward team, pacification type ops, to get towns to fold and place their leadership in power and turning the people into forced labor. Those sick or old, they kill. The room started to look at the elder house leaders. On this map, Bill displayed the objective map. You can see our area is in a red circle. This means that we have resisted. A large cheer went up in the room. However, this also means there will be little help from the areas around us. We are on our own. Have you shared this with the sheriff and the town guard? One man asked. No, not yet. Eric will be meeting with the sheriff tomorrow and will share this with them. The issue here, folks, town government is going to do what's best to save lives. These people we are facing are not concerned with that. This is for natural resources. I'm not willing to roll over to be a slave to feed China or Russia. Hear, hear, voices yelled out. We need to be ready, folks. We need to make sure our mountain does not fall. We need to make sure these people fear stepping outside their tents or vehicles. A tall, quiet man stepped out of the darkness in the back corner. It was Ghost. "Good to see you, Ghost," Bill said. The man nodded. "My Ridge Runners can take care of that, no problem." This guy represented some scary folks who literally live in the woods and are made up of vets and homeless folks who are like everywhere but nowhere. Bill met this guy while on his way to a big box store and damn near ran him over as he was climbing a switchback. He stopped on the way back with some food and shotgun shells and left a note. The two men met in town and Bill invited him to his mountain. The group took up an abandoned 400-acre property and were always watching out for everyone. If they ever needed any medical, they always came to Bill's retreat, and he would do what he could to patch them up or take them to the hospital if the injury was severe enough. "Thanks, Ghost. That will be most appreciated," Bill said. "We have an edge, folks. We have one of their radios. The radio is not secure, meaning the traffic is in the clear. Those of you who have scanners, you're listening for anything that is not us on the radio or your groups. We will operate on the echo channel for all comms for our defense. Only pass verifiable traffic and keep it short. Also, make sure your house radios are set for low power. This will keep our comms from leaking out all over the place." Bill presented the rest of the op order and showed the group what the current U.S. map looked like. Many were in disbelief. Someone called out, "Bullshit," as they couldn't believe the U.S. was literally being taken over from the southern border, west and east coast, and rumors of Chinese taking over Canada and doing cross-border attacks on the northern boundary. "Where is our military?" a voice called out. "Most went home after the EMP attacks," Bill said. "So if you're asking where the military is, look around. That would be us. And many people just like us, fighting off these invaders." The barn got quiet as reality started to sink in. One man asked, "You still honor your oath?" "Which one?" Bill asked. "The one you made us sign in blood?" "I will give my life, if I have to," Bill replied. The other members cheered at that. "The pact," Bill piped up, "is for each house to send 2 fighters to my keep with your loved ones. This will ensure we have a solid fighting force there and should not impact your remaining teams. Make sure you send good shooters. Your loved ones will be depending on that," Bill said. Another man stood up. "What's the next step?" Bill pointed to the man and said, "Great question. We need to be on the lookout for probing units. They will be sent into the area before the main attack force commits. You see anyone that is not from our clans, they need to be stopped and ID'd. You can use the RavenNet channel on your radios to call in the information, and we will put it in our database and check our database to see if it's one of our own or not. Next, we need to make sure we get our houses in order for a fight. They seem to like to start at one end and work their way down the road. It is imperative to make sure your ATVs and side-by-sides are topped off and in good running order," Bill said. There was some grumbling about fuel. "If you are low on fuel, I could provide some to top you off. I'm running low myself on gasoline." "Still doing good on diesel," Bill said. The room buzzed more and started to break out into free-for-all conversation. The gavel banged 3 times and the sergeant-at-arms called order. "We need to have weekly meetings to keep track of readiness efforts. I propose the meeting spot to be in the Ghost Woods." Ghost acknowledged the proposal with a head nod. "One last item before we go," Bill said. "The emergency code for this defensive operation is Blackbird. Any house under attack, say house name and Blackbird. If you hear that, we need all quick reaction teams to respond ready to kick ass. Does everyone understand?" The room was silent. "Okay, good," Bill finished, and looked at the sergeant-at-arms and said, "Sergeant, meeting adjourned." The gavel banged 3 times and the sergeant-at-arms adjourned the meeting. Chapter 8. The Wait. Bill started to pack up his gear. The meeting lasted longer than he had thought it would, and he wanted to get back home. Eric and Ghost approached Bill. "Can you spare a few minutes, Bill?" Eric asked. Bill replied, "Sure, let me load up this gear real quick." Once the gear was stowed, he focused on the two men. "What's up?" Bill said. "What you mentioned tonight. Been hearing some really bad shit in the woodwalker net." Ghost was not a talker. In fact, he hardly talked at all, so Bill would have to pull this out of him. He liked Ghost and his crew, but man, those guys would just appear out of nowhere and scare the shit out of you. "Been hearing a lot of torture talk and killing for no reason," Ghost said. "So let me ask this, Ghost," Bill spoke. "Is it the PRC guys doing this, or the turncoat militias?" Ghost frowned. "The word in the woods is it's the militia folks doing this." Bill smiled. "Then that's good. We all know it's much better than professional military with a full combat logistics support train, right?" Bill asked. Ghost shook his head, yes. Eric spoke. "A fella came by last week, said he was part of the militia that was protecting the county. They had several units throughout and were recruiting for new members." Bill sighed. "This is not good." "That was a probe." Eric sighed. "Well, one of my nephews went with the man. He hasn't come back." Bill was pissed. "Eric, how could you let him go?" "I thought it would be a good chance for him to get some intel and maybe some help if we needed it up here," Eric replied. "Describe this guy to me, as much detail as you can," Bill said. Eric replied, "Well, he was in black BDUs like what the SWAT teams used to wear. He had a patch with a sun background with a sickle across it. He seemed to be squared away," Eric finished. "Fuck," Bill said. "This is what is in that op ward. We got trouble, Eric. Real bad trouble." "Did he say where the unit was out of?" Bill asked. "Yeah, they are based out of Tazewell currently." "That's not more than 20 miles away," Bill said. Eric's GMRS radio crackled. "Shepherd 1, Shepherd Base, need you back ASAP." Eric replied, "Shepherd 1, what's going on?" "Shepherd Base, it's Zach." "Damn it," Eric gasped. "Zach is the nephew that went with that guy." Bill looked at Eric. "Get in, I will take you." "Ghost, jump in the back," and the three raced towards Eric's homestead. There was a flurry of headlamps and flashlights around the front gate, where Zach's body was bound by wires. Eric jumped out of the gator before it even stopped. He put his hands on his head and was pacing all around. "Robbie," Eric's son came up to him. "He's barely alive, Dad. Keep saying they are coming and watching." "Fuck," Eric replied. "What else did he say?" Bill asked. "Did anyone see any vehicle?" Bill went up to Zach. "Hang in there, buddy. How many are there in the camp?" Zach gasped. 27. "Any military?" Zach gasped. "No." "What about military weapons and explosives?" Bill asked. Zach was fading fast. 2 machine guns, some grenades. Zach's body started to tremor. His mother yelled at Bill to leave him alone. Bill obliged, and she held her boy in her lap. Bill walked back to the gator, where Ghost was. "This isn't good, man. Do you have anyone near Tazewell?" Bill asked. Ghost nodded yes. "Do you think they can gather intel or start harassing the enemy?" Ghost smiled. "We could do that." Bill looked at Ghost and smiled. "Make it so, Mr. Ghost." Ghost smiled and in a deep voice said, "Roger that." Bill went over to Eric. "I need you to ask this question to Zach before the Lord takes him." Eric snapped at Bill. "What question?" Bill replied, "Did he crack?" Eric sighed and went to Zach. Zach was barely hanging on, and Eric got down in his ear and asked him, "Did you crack, son? Did you tell them anything?" Zach responded, "They hurt me," gasping, "real bad. But I didn't tell them, Unc. I told them they were all dead." And Zach faded off in Eric's arms. Zach's mother wailed. Eric looked at Bill and shook his head. "No." Bill responded with a thumbs up. Eric ordered his group to bring Zach to the house and clean him up. they would bury the young man in the morning. As they started to carry the boy off, Eric came over to Ghost and Bill. "I want to kill every one of these bastards." Bill smiled and said, "We will. Ghost is going to pass the word to his people in Tazwell, and they are going to soften them up a bit. Once they get on our mountain, we will hand them their ass, and you will get your revenge." "Thank you, brothers." Eric shook Ghost's and Bill's hand and headed to the house. Bill looked at Ghost. "Hop in, I'll take you where you need to go." Ghost got in the gator, and the two headed back towards Bill's retreat. It was almost 2200 hours when Ghost said, "Here," and Bill stopped the side-by-side. Ghost opened his door and looked at Bill. "You're a good leader, Bill. I'm glad to know you." Bill responded, "I guess I got elected for this op, didn't I?" Ghost smiled and said, "I guess so. You will do fine," as he closed the door and faded off into the dark night. Bill called in he was en route and would be there in 15 minutes. Sam responded to the radio call with a "Roger that." Bill closed the last gate, and the main gate was opened by Sam, and Bill pulled into the courtyard. Bill entered the main house, and Scott, Martha, Sam, and Shelby stood there with mouths agape. Martha sprang into action. "You're hurt," she said. Bill was confused. Then he realized he was covered in blood from Zach. He put his hands up. "It's not mine. I'm fine. I'm not hurt." Martha asked, "What happened?" And Bill started to explain the night's events. Sam exclaimed, "Shit just got real." Bill nodded, "Yes," and told the team under no circumstances to go alone to any gate calls. Gate calls were when someone showed up at the entrance at the West Tower. The first two gates in the driveway were merely speed bumps to slow down an attack. The West Tower had an old military field phone that a visitor could call into the CQ desk and let the group know they were there. If the group members had all made it, this West Gate would be manned 24 hours a day. But given the small numbers the group had, it was easier to monitor with a solar-powered camera and an old battery-powered field phone. Power was not really an issue for the retreat. They had a robust solar system and a diesel generator for backup. The overall power consumption was mostly keeping the computer systems running and the deep freezers. Each common area, like the cookhouse, had its own smaller solar system, so the main house power was not overused. The chicken and pheasant barn had its own water and solar system, as well as the dog kennels. Water was provided by rain catchment with 2 springs for backup should there be a dry period. Being located in the mountains always provided rain opportunities, so gardens, etc. were naturally watered, with only the super hot months being supplemented by stored water reserves. Bill stated he needed to get the intel package out to his friend in Arizona so he could share it with others on the larger HF net, and they could relay the information to other groups and towns across the U.S. Martha spoke. "You need to get that blood off of you before you do anything. Blood can contain a whole lot of nasty crud that you do not want any part of." Bill knew she was right. When you're just dealing with your own folks, you know they are not full of nasty stuff, which makes the risk lower. Having someone else's blood on you can bring in a whole range of ugly, like hepatitis and AIDS, and while those seem to be modern issues, the risks were higher now with little to no health care, laboratories, or other modern medicine. Bill smiled at Martha. "You are right, nurse. I will clean up." Martha smiled back. "Make sure you scrub up real good, and if there are any open wounds, cuts, or scratches, I need to see them right away." Bill replied, "Yes, ma'am." Martha smiled and said, "Get at it." Bill shook his head and headed into the bathroom to clean himself up. It sure was nice having a medical person here. Now if Frank could just make it, they would have a decent medical team. "Where the fuck are you, Frank?" Bill said to himself. Sam told the remaining team members he was going out on patrol and would be checking every 30. Shelby acknowledged that and went back into the CQ office to monitor. Bill let Martha know he was good to go with no signs of any wounds that could be infected by the blood. Martha replied good and said, "I don't mean to be a nag, but it's a small shit that will get you." Bill smiled. "I'm glad you are here. And yes, you're right about the small stuff. We need to be better about it." Martha smiled. "Oh, don't worry. I will remind you." Bill smiled and replied, "Good. I have to take care of some things. Call me on the radio if you need me." Martha replied, "Will do." Bill punched in the code to enter the TSOC. In his former life, he was the Chief Information Security Officer for a Fortune 1000 company. His IT and security skills were top notch, and so was the TSOC he built for the group's intel collection and monitoring. Tonight was going to be the first time he sent an intel package since this all went to hell, and all the years of planning and coordination, wargaming, and preparing would now come down to this one transmission. He converted the PowerPoint into a Word document and converted the image of the map to a JPEG format. The baud rate was very slow on the data. 19,200 was as good as it got. The opword was 59K in length, which should only take a few minutes to transmit. The image was 3 megabits in size. This would take a lot longer to send. Bill pulled up the VeraC, or VeraChat as it was called. He set up the link between him and his friend Jerry in Arizona. Then he sent a beacon and then waited for his friend to acknowledge. A couple minutes went by and the bell sound came through indicating they were connected. Bill sent a message. Urgent traffic, switch to Red Raven channel. Within a few seconds, the words copy appeared on the screen. Once on the predetermined channel, a new message came in. Ready, it said. Bill transmitted the opword in 3 blocks. This took several minutes. Once this was transmitted, his friend acknowledged the receipt of the message. Bill stated he would use SSTV to send the image. Bill's friend acknowledged. Bill missed email. It was the one true workhorse of the internet. This barbaric method of communication was slow and not secure, but in a pinch it was all they had. An hour went by, and there was another bell sound from the Veracode console indicating a new message. It was Jerry. It said, "Sat phone?" ? Bill scrambled. He found the sat phone that he almost forgot about and powered it on. The battery was dead. Bill typed in the chat window, "Battery dead, call in 5 minutes," then pressed the send button and grabbed his cigarette plug adapter and went out to get a 12-volt jump pack from a shed. The jump and carry JNC 770 had built-in USB and a female 12-volt port for a cigarette plug. He plugged in the sat phone, and within a few minutes the sat phone rang, and Bill answered. "Hello, old friend." Jerry replied, "Good to hear you." Bill replied, "Yeah, same man. Good to hear you." Jerry asked Bill the credibility of the data he had just sent. Bill replied, "It's 100% taken from an LT who was leading an advance party." "This is incredible," Jerry replied. "I will send it out to the net to be relayed all over. If I get anything of value back, I will send it via Vera." Jerry finished. Both men said goodbye to each other, and the call ended, lasting for just 1 minute. Sat phone connectivity was hit or miss, and missed more than anything, due to the damaged infrastructure. For some reason, tonight it seemed to be fine. However, the small bank of minutes was dwindling, so both had agreed to keep calls to less than 1 minute. The Woods Net. Ghost briefed his men on the situation and issued an opword for the Woods Net, which would be conveyed via tree knocks, whoops, hollers, and other assorted methods of relaying a need to meet and pass information. The men would often muse that most Sasquatch sightings or captured vocals were nothing more than the men communicating in the dead of night, and for entertainment, a good Sasquatch scare for some city folks camping in a tent in their area of operation was always good for a laugh around a campfire when they met deep in the woods. They were the watchers, the listeners, and the things that went bump in the night. On the surface they appeared to be homeless or drug addicts, especially when in town, and could blend in without ever being noticed. They shared information all over and protected those that looked out for them. Tazewell, Tennessee. The leader of the PRC-controlled militia held a meeting with the team leaders in the old high school, now serving as barracks. All form of local government either killed or turned to their cause and going along. They would use those relationships to get the next town's local police defense force and then take them out, eliminating any form of organized resistance. This method worked almost every time, and with the new target of Farmersville being finalized, it was time to start initializing the plan. Teams are in place in town. There are 3 5-man teams operating in and around the town. Those teams will take out the sheriff's office, and once that is done, anyone in jail will be set free to join us or will be killed if they refuse. We are expecting about 15 more fighters from the jail, which will give us 30 in town to secure it. There is a hot spot. There's about 20 homes up in the mountains overlooking the town. We snagged a young guy there 5 days ago, and while he didn't tell us much, he did give us enough to work that area up. We're going to go in on the west side. There are a bunch of homes leading in, and for the most part they should not put up much of a fight. When we get to the objective road, those homes are a bit tougher, but most are vulnerable to fire and easily surrounded due to the thick woods up there.